We're going to start tonight with the age-old question that has been debated ever since the Dallas Mavericks last Thursday night took care of the Minnesota Timberwolves in 5 games. You have a Boston Celtics team who may have had the easiest road to the NBA Finals potentially in history, and I don't think that's an understatement. And then you have a Dallas Mavericks team who, even though they were a 5 seed, they completely changed around their bench and their team at the trade deadline. Luka and Kyrie are playing well at the right time. So, Jalen, I know you talked about this a little bit today when you were filling in for me on Brandon's World, but I'm going to ask you the question on the screen. Who wins the 2024 NBA Finals?
Now, usually my camera would be on and my hat would be backwards. Shout out to JJ Redick.
By the way, the new head coach of the Lakers.
Is that confirmed?
It is pretty much confirmed, yes.
Wow.
The deal is in pretty much in the closing stage. They're going to make it official as soon as the finals end.
Oh, okay. We'll talk about that a little later. We'll get into that. But you see the man on the screen. You see that man? That is a dangerous man. Okay, this man is cold. And for that reason, I said, if you tune into Brand's World, I said Dallas in 6.
You did.
I did, and I stand by it.
You also said that you now believe Luka Doncic is the best player on the planet, which I am toying with. I would say he'd be right up there if he wins this finals. I have always said, and I still say it, and Luka has proven me wrong all postseason. And I'll say this: I think Dallas got, as of course Boston, we know they got 3 or 4 major breaks this postseason. I think Dallas did get one major break, and that was in the first round that Kawhi Leonard did not essentially play in that Clippers series, albeit he was out there for 2 games. I don't know if that Dallas team that's currently constructed would have beat that Clipper team if you add Kawhi Leonard as a wing defender for 7 straight games. Because I thought that Clipper team, they took them to 6 games essentially without Kawhi. I know the 2 games they won were without Kawhi on the court, but that still took a magnificent effort from Harden and Paul George. This Dallas team has impressed me. The one thing that I think they don't have an advantage of over Boston, and even though I do think they have the best player in the series, I think Dallas is so Luka, so Kyrie dependent that yes, PJ Washington needs to play well, and yes, Tim Hardaway needs to make some shots, even though he was obviously benched the last part of the Western Conference Finals, and Derek Lively and Gafford have to be huge on the boards. But when you play a team like Boston, who is so analytic, who is so 3-point driven, who has not only Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Drew Holiday, Derek White, Al Horford, Peyton Pritchard, Kristaps Porzingis, I just feel like there's too much firepower there for Dallas to overcome.
I would agree with you, but I've seen Luka do nasty things to a lot of bad people. And I've seen Kyrie do nasty. This is the best version of Kyrie since the 2016 finals.
Oh, easily. It's not even close. And it's funny. I saw a tweet the other day, and I don't know who it is, or I would shout them out. They said that essentially we treated Kyrie Irving like he went to prison and did something bad for 8 years. Like, oh, we're so proud of Kyrie Irving. Oh, my God. And it's like, no. He was 24 years old in 2016, and I've talked to you about this when it comes to maturing and growing up. And as we know, it sometimes takes, people more years than others too. And, I think Kyrie, after realizing he wasn't the leader that he should have been in Boston, after realizing what a disaster Brooklyn was, I think it took him and Luka about a year to sort of mesh. But once they did, it's like Kyrie sort of taking that ego aside, and he has become to Luka what he was to LeBron in really, 15 and 16, even though he got hurt in 15.
If Kyrie Irving plays in 15, there is no telling what happens.
I think everybody in the world says the Cavs probably win that championship, but I have said you can't say that because everybody in the world would have probably said Golden State if Durant didn't get hurt and Clay didn't get hurt. Like they probably beat Toronto, but Toronto took advantage and they won the championship. So it's really hard, And the other thing too with Boston, right, is like they got a huge break. Jimmy Butler completely gone in the first round, break. Donovan Mitchell missing the last two games for Cleveland, break. Jared Allen not playing at all in the series, break. What I said right around championship rings, which was one of Tyrese Halliburton, Pascal Siakam, Miles Turner was going to get hurt, break. Now it's like, if somebody for Dallas is going to get hurt, because I do feel like this is Boston's year.
I hope not. I really hope not. Brandon, you have no idea how much I hate these Boston. No, I can't even say that word on air.
Can I can I ask you why though? Because I don't think, again, you know me, I'm not the biggest fan of Jason Tatum, and obviously neither are you. If you heard today's Brains World, you know that. But I don't think there's a villain or an evil guy on either of these ball clubs. I'm going to preface that.
Boston is just an evil franchise. What are you talking about? Kelly Olynyk yanked Kevin Love's shoulder out of his socket.
See, I don't get into.
Oh, come
I
on.
think basketball is one of those things where it's like there's not really a real rivalry anymore. I think the close we may have gotten to it is the last 2 years, the Lakers Nuggets, and I think Nuggets T Wolves potentially has an opportunity to do that. But I think NBA teams change so much. Like the last time I truly felt hatred for a franchise was Golden State when we were in that rivalry with them, us being the Cavs for 4 years.
Yeah, that was bad, but God, do I hate Boston. Maybe it's because I know Boston fans. Maybe that has a lot to do with
Well,
it.
I will agree to that. I mean, no offense to you, Boston fans, but you guys have been spoiled your whole lives, and you guys are the biggest. I will say this: you guys are the biggest dicks on the planet.
Ah,
Um, you
all offense to Boston fans. Every single Boston fan out there, screw you guys. Every
and by the way, Boston knows it, and Philadelphia is in this category as well. Though I don't think they're as obnoxious. New York is definitely in this category, but just because Boston, like even the Bruins have won championships lately. Obviously, New England's two dynasties essentially. You got the Red Sox who won the two championships. I remember a sign. I think it was at like the 2018 Red Sox parade. That's just something like I've seen 10 championships and I'm only 8 years old or something like that. So it just goes to show you. But to this current Boston team, I don't not like them and I don't hate them. It's weird. Like I don't have a preference who wins this championship.
Oh, I hate every single Boston Celtics except for Jalen Brown. Because listen, there is, I'm not gonna lie, there in my office there is a All Star Jalen Brown banner from his locker when the All Star game was in Cleveland. My aunt worked down there in the locker rooms and took the Jalen Brown sign and gave it to me, and it is hanging up. I love Jalen Brown. I I absolutely hate Jason Tatum. I hate Derek White. His face is so punchable. Oh my god.
Man. So speaking of Derek White, I have not yet, because we got into the conversation on Boston Dallas. I have not given my official prediction, but I alluded to it a little bit last week on Championship Rings. And me and Josh were talking about this series. I think, and I don't know if you know this, Jalen. Do you know the last time there was a Game Seven? You probably do. The last Game Seven of the NBA Finals.
The last game 7 was beautiful. It
It
was
was.
very
It was the 2016 NBA Finals, and I don't know if many people realize this. I did this on my own research because I'm a nerd when it comes to this stuff, and I'm bored with it. But this is the second longest streak in NBA history. The longest was from 94 to 2005. That's 11 years. This is the second longest streak in NBA history that we have gone without a Game 7 in between finals, this being the eighth year.
I
It's
hope we get a 7. I'm not
it's
gonna lie.
it's one of the longest streaks in sports, by the way. Baseball had a 9-year streak from 2002 to 2011 in the World Series. The NHL had a crazy one where it was basically, I think it was like 1981 and 1997 or so. It was like 16 years in between Stanley Cup World Series. But it's weird. I try to think why that is. We've had a ton of 6 game series. There was one year where it went 4 years in a row, 2019 through actually last year when Denver obviously beat Miami in 5. But I do think this is going to be the first game 7 since the 2016 finals. I do think that for Dallas, they're probably going to have to steal one on the road in the first 2 games to get this to 7, I would think. And I also think that's possible because both these teams, by the way, play better on the road than at home. I think this is a situation where home court advantage doesn't matter as much until you get to a game 7. And I think this will be a tight, close game. Either Jason Tatum or Jalen Brown will drive with about under 30 seconds left. They will kick out a wide open 3 to a man that you just said has a punchable face, and Derek White will hit the game-winning shot in Game 7 for the Boston Celtics.
Oh, how fitting would that be? Jason Tatum with another bailout. How fitting would that be?
I listen. Derek White is obviously cold, but when he's hot, and remember when I'm sure you saw my rant on championship rings a couple weeks ago about the Denver Nuggets, about how Aaron Gordon didn't come and KCP didn't come, and all their role players didn't come. Well, I said if all their role players came, they're pretty much unbeatable. I feel the same way about Boston. If you get 15 or 18 from Horford, and you get that from White, and you get, whatever you can get from Porzingis, and Pritchard chips in a couple threes. Like, as much as we don't like Tatum and Brown, you're going to book them for between 20 and 25 points, I think, every game this series. So if you get, like I said, 18 here from White, 15 here from Pritchard, 10 or 15 from Horford, I think Boston is pretty hard to beat that way.
You know what I'm excited for? When Kyrie Irving touches that damn ball in Boston, oh my Lord.
So, I'll be honest, I don't think this is as big of a deal as people are making it out to be.
Oh, come on. What?
And I say that because, let's be real here, Kyrie really only spent about a year or 2 in Boston, and most of it was with injuries.
But he said, here's the thing that makes it a big deal. He went on national television and said he was going to resign.
Well,
pissing on
everybody says that. You remember when LeBron came back in 2014 and said he's never leaving Cleveland again, and look what happened 4 years later.
That's because everyone who still likes LeBron in this city are a bunch of old men. Oh my God, he brought us a championship, LeBron. I love you so. No, screw you. I don't want you back. Stay away from my team, you cancer. All right, I'm not. I don't want him back. I don't want him.
I also think, by the way, Kristaps Porzingis returning to Dallas is kind of a nothing story. He didn't.
Yeah, that's a nothing. Yeah,
he didn't do much in Dallas. Now it's interesting because I don't know if you heard this the other day. Porzingis basically said there was a question between him and Luka who was going to be the number 1. I don't buy that from Luka perspective, but maybe it just shows the immaturity of Porzingis in his young career.
Porzingis, when in New York, Porzingis, the unicorn, Porzingis, whatever you guys call him, he is one of my favorite players.
He was Victor Wembanyama before Victor Wembanyama existed to most people on the planet.
This is true. This is the one that I knows about Victor Wembanyama is one Brandon Lewis.
Well, yeah, I've been telling you about Victor Wembanyama for the past 5 years. I've been trying to tell everybody that would listen about this kid that's coming up that's going to be the next face of the NBA.
But he ain't the face yet.
Speaking of the NBA, I think he could be there very well soon next year. But I think if Luka wins this NBA I almost said World Series. If Luka wins this NBA Finals, I think he's going to be in the conversation. I'm not going to discount Nikola Jokic from the conversation, though he definitely is a tier below after what I saw in Game 7 in his house, blowing a 20-point lead at home. And I think Anthony Edwards will eventually get there, but I think it's going to take a couple years. We've been saying here on championship rings that nobody has ever had, the success essentially that he had at 22 years old. So I think it's interesting, but I think the pressure's on the Celtics because it's time for Tatum and Brown to break through.
I agree.
And so, Jay, when you look at this, so you think Dallas is going to win in 6? Do you agree with me though that if they don't steal at least one of these two games on the road, it's going to be very hard to win this series?
I agree. I was listening to First Take this morning, right before the Pat McAfee show, which now that I'm home all afternoon, I get to catch.
And we will get to comments Mr. McAfee made a little bit later in the show.
1-1. Stephen A. Smith said it, and I agree. It'll be 1-1 when we go to Dallas.
Here's the other thing, though. As I said, if that is the case, and I could very well see it being 1-1, if it is 1-1, it's not like Dallas really has control of the series because both these teams, ironically, are better on the road.
Yeah, if they don't play well at home, and I don't understand.
I've never seen anything like it to where you have two teams, and we talked about this when it came to Indiana against the Knicks in Game 7. There's a reason why I thought the Knicks would win, even with all their injured people, besides when Jalen Brunson broke his hand. It's because I thought, Game 7, role players usually play better at home, and this postseason, every road player, I swear, has played better on the road.
Remember when Dellavedova, what he did in the playoffs on the road in Chicago?
2015 finals.
Yeah. What about what he did in Chicago the series prior when he hit like 6
Absolutely.
threes?
That Game 6 to close that out was incredible. But again, historically, road players play better at home, but it doesn't seem like either is the case with these two teams.
I am just strapped in, Brandon. I am strapped in and ready. Basketball has made me so I don't even know what to do. I've been paying attention to the Tribe, obviously, but there's no finals on, and I don't know what to do.
And that's where me and you are different because I'm excited for this finals, but I'm not overly excited for it. Again, I like it better in sports when we have a villain, when we have dynasties, when we have rooting interest, good or bad against, and this one I'm sort of indifferent about.
So you're gonna say there's no dynasty here? Boston has the most championships.
Boston, in order to be a dynasty, you have to win 2 championships in 3 years, 3 championships in 4 years, etc. I don't care if they made the Eastern Conference Finals 6 straight years or whatever the number is, 6 out of their last 8. The Celtics, and there was a conversation today, somebody from the Boston Globe, I think, wrote an article that basically said that if this Celtics team were to win, they would be an all-time team because the analytics back it up. And the Celtics, I'm sorry, I don't know, and this may be the most controversial thing I've ever said on this show.
Whoa.
The Celtics don't have a Hall of Famer currently on their team. Tatum is not currently a Hall of Famer if he retired today. Jalen Brown is not a Hall of Famer if he retired today.
Well, obviously, if he retired today, but I don't think Jason Tatum is a Hall of Famer, period. I hate this.
If he wins 2 more championships, he probably is. Now, for the record, I think Kyrie is
a Hall of Famer.
Close to being a Hall of Famer. If he gets 1 more, he's definite.
Kyrie is a Hall of Famer.
I think what will hurt Kyrie, this is the thing, the Basketball Hall of Fame drives me nuts because you have to include college and high school, and I don't do that because I don't give a rip what you did before the NBA. But I think what hurts Kyrie is, again, the fact that he went 8 years essentially in the absence of the public eye, if you will.
This is true, but God, there is not a lot of players that I look at and I'm like, holy shit.
I'll say this. At this point right now in the NBA, Luka is the best player to not have won a championship.
I agree. And I look at those two every single night, whether it's Luka hitting step backs, or Kyrie being nasty through the legs, splitting the double. Where I'm like, holy, like, oh my god.
I do wonder, and Luka's great. And by the way, a shot that popped me out of my chair, which I don't ever pop up out of my chair for individual shots unless it's end of game. But that shot, it was the game they lost against Minnesota. But I don't know if you remember this, where he gets fouled and shoots it from half court and gets an and one and then misses the free throw.
Yeah.
I was like, holy, I've never seen someone do that where they make a free from half court while getting trapped.
No, because literally me and you probably did the same thing because I stood up too. I was like, oh, he just heaved it up and it was perfect. And I was like, oh
And
my
I was like,
God.
oh, and then he blows the free throw because if he gets that home, it's a what is it, a 3-point game at that
It's
point?
like a 3-point game with like 30 seconds left. And I'm like,
And then you don't have to foul, and then it's like an actual ball game. So I do think you and I both know this. The NBA Finals is a different stage than the conference finals. And I'm wondering, can Luca maintain that composure? Is he going to show up for all 7 games? Is he going to get worn out? Is he going to be special? Because he can't have an off night. If he has an off night, Dallas is done. That's why I think advantage Boston. Not saying I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas pulls this out, but I think again Dallas is so Luka and Kyrie dependent because I feel like I know more that I'm going to get more contributions from Boston's other role players than Dallas's, and I ultimately think that's what the series comes down to.
I agree, but you also have to remember Luca has been calm his entire career.
Well, he bitches at the officials every time he walks down the court.
Let me get to that. He just likes to bitch. He runs his mouth. That's his only problem. But if you need a guy to drain a shot with like 45 seconds left, Luka's your man.
Right now, I'd be hard pressed to find a better guy. So I agree with you there. Let's get to this question because this is a very interesting question. So we talked a lot about the finals, right? But obviously there is huge amount of pressure on the Boston Celtics. As we just talked about, they had maybe the easiest road. Would you agree with me that I think it's the easiest road ever for any team, regardless of conference, to get to the finals?
Oh, absolutely. I saw a meme on Twitter, and it's Jason Tatum walking a path with flowers, and then it's Luka walking through hellfire and brimstone. To quote our good old buddy JR when Kane comes out. I was like, this is perfect. This is exactly what it is. Luke is walking through hell, battling through, and Jason Tatum's picking flowers and skipping down the pathway.
Yeah, and I said, by the way, that people thought that LeBron had a cakewalk to the East, which some years he did, but it was nothing like this. He at least faced one team that, even though he would get through him, would give him some sort of challenge.
No, he didn't.
Oh, come on.
No, he didn't.
That 8 years, over that 8 year stretch, remember those Indiana Pacer teams with Paul George and he was in Miami? What about the Boston teams? What about that Chicago team
the Boston teams that whooped him?
No, I'm talking about the 2012 team that obviously.
We're talking about the 2012. Okay.
One of the greatest games. I think now his 2018 game against Golden State's the greatest game he ever played. But I think that's probably the second greatest game he ever played was that Game 6 against Boston.
Oh yeah, so hard against Boston in 2018. So hard with a rookie Jalen Brown and a rookie Jason Tatum. So hard.
Well, again. No, I'm talking about Paul Pierce.
You're talking about when he was in Miami.
Yeah,
that's what you're talking. Okay.
Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen versus Tyrese Halliburton and Darius Garland and Bam Adebayo, because that's essentially who Boston had to go through.
Yeah, I did see that. I saw that meme.
But in this case, as I just mentioned, the Celtics, they won 64 games in the regular season. They cruised through everybody. They cruised through the East. I have said on the last 2 championship rings, the NBA gods are up there and they are saying, please let there be Boston. This is the Celtics year. They've waited since 2008. They've waited since 2010 to win the NBA Finals. Here they are. If the NBA gods decide, no, 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 we want a guy who Dallas somehow found a better foreign than Dirk Nowitzki. We never thought they would, and yet they did in Luka Doncic.
Whoa, whoa, whoa! Better than Dirk?
Yeah, absolutely. Luka is a better player than Dirk.
Come on!
Absolutely, Luka. Dirk never even got this to this stage till late in his career.
Dirk, exactly. Dirk beat your boy down by himself.
That was late in his career. I'm pretty sure Luka's already made more conference finals than Dirk did.
I'm just saying, man, Dirk's special.
Dirk is special. He was the greatest big man. But if you're ranking just based off players, I'll take Luka.
Fair enough. Fair argument. Fair argument. Go ahead.
Okay, so regardless, maybe can we say the two greatest players in franchise history that are both foreign, Luka and Dirk?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
So if this isn't the year for Boston and the NBA gods say let there be Luka Doncic, what do you do if you're the Celtics?
I mean, this gets Tatum out of every top 10 list. This gets Tatum wiped off that list. Jalen Brown wiped off that list. It completely debunks the credit that the Celtics always have. It completely gets rid of it. This is, if you lose here and you're Boston, next year needs it to be a complete revenge tour. No cruising through the season, because I've heard Mike Breen say that thousands of times. Boston just cruised through the regular season. Can't do that next year. Absolutely not, because you have a chip on your shoulder. Jason Tatum, that 0 on your back turned to a target. You better be locked in next year.
If they don't win the title, they just paid Tatum. They just paid Jalen Brown. These two guys, I think, are both making somewhere about $50 million. Do you consider breaking them up? Because I don't know what you do to improve the team.
Absolutely. We've seen this time and time again. If they don't win here, it just doesn't work. It's just not meant to happen, Boston. And that's not even me being a hater. That's just me saying it's not meant to be.
So you also look at the East this year. You know, Joel Embiid, who I am now, by the way, completely out on. I can't believe I ever said those words because I was so in on him 2 years ago. And he's let me down in back-to-back postseasons. The Knicks, I thought, would give, the Celtics a real handful if Jalen Brunson was healthy. They should be better next year. Who knows what the hell is going to happen in Cleveland and what moves are going to be made? Could Orlando come out of nowhere and grow up if they get a Paul George and Banchero becomes, an even better player? They absolutely could. So it does feel like next year the East is going to at least be better than what it was a year ago. Would you agree with that?
I agree, especially like towards that middle of the pack, like that Cleveland, like towards those seedings. I feel like we're going to be much better, especially with the firing of JB Bickerstaff. So, and we give Boston hell every time we play them. So
and that was one of the points that Josh was making throughout the whole second round. When he was saying, I think the Cavs have a shot. I think the Cavs have a shot. And I'm the one that kept firing back saying, I understand where you're coming from. The Cavs are the worst head coach in the history of the NBA. It's not going to work.
The worst coach. Worse than, oh, God. Oh, yeah. We've had some bad ones, but JB's.
By the way, for the record, in this series, there was a pretty bad head coach. His name was Jason Kidd. You remember his first stint in Milwaukee? You remember that incident where he fake spilling a drink on the floor to get a timeout called?
Yes, I do. So, you know who he wanted? You know who he won a championship with? Dallas. How poetic is this that he's about to win another one?
Well, we'll see if he wins another one. But he was on that 2011 team. He's got experience, and the thing is, and the interesting thing is, Boston, right? Joe Mazzulla. This is the first time on the big stage.
God, I hate Joe Mazzulla.
And
He
let's be
sucks.
honest. I mean, what does Joe Mazzulla do? It seems to me like he's that kind of cool frat kid in the room who just goes along for the ride.
He's like the Gronk essentially. Like he just laughs at everything. Like, he's like, oh yeah, cool dude. Like he just, oh my god, he's a joke.
So again, if the Boston Celtics do not win, I'm I'm going to ask it to you this way, and I think you already said this, but I want to confirm: if the Celtics do not win the championship this year, this current iteration of the core will not win a championship.
I nope. This is it. This is basically the basketball gods, as you like to say, handing them the title. You could lead a horse to water, but you can't force him to drink it. You could lead Boston to a title, but you can't force him to win it.
I do think the one move that former head coach, now he's the GM, president of basketball ops, whatever term they want to call him, running the show, Brad Stevens, the
Yeah,
move they made to go get Drew Holiday. I don't even think it's Porzingis. I think Porzingis is a luxury piece. I don't think they need him. I think the move they made to essentially swap out Marcus Smart for a little bit of a better defender and a better scorer, without a doubt, and a leader because he's been on championships and won championships. That may be the move that puts Boston over the top.
I agree. But can I? You know how annoying Kevin Garnett's going to be if Boston wins this championship?
Well, like
Oh
I
my!
said, I really don't care. I actually, even though they beat the Cavs down 2 of those 3 years, I always sort of like that Pierce, Allen, Garnett big three
Oh, I
because
did too.
they weren't really superstars. They were kind of like that Indiana team, but they were better in terms of overall talent, if that makes sense. Or like I feel like Indiana's a superstar away. They were like just below the superstar level, but in that era 10 years ago, that could win you a championship. I
Yeah,
don't know. I don't know if that team today could win a championship against some of these teams.
absolutely not. Absolutely, you need shooting, and the only great shooter on that team was Ray Allen.
Yeah. Who, by the way, also saved LeBron's legacy by hitting the second greatest shot in the history of the sport.
You are the only LeBron fan to ever admit that. Thank you so much.
I mean, if you actually look hard, if you really want to look hard at LeBron's championships, 2012 was the shortened championship, even though they did win the championship. It was shortened season because of a walkout. 2013 was the Ray Allen shot. 2016, Draymond gets suspended.
Kyrie.
2020 was the bubble. So again, in all 4 cases, he got a break, but championship teams do get breaks, and that's why I feel like this is Boston's year.